So my name is Ruotger Deecke. I have 10 years of experience developing for Cocoa on Mac OS 10 and later on iOS, and I do that on Objective-C. And I'm working in Berlin, Germany for eBay Classifieds. eBay Classifieds is a part of eBay that's not so well known. So that's classifieds ads all over the world. eBay has bought some companies that do classifieds ads, and to make matters even more complicated, my team is based in Portland, Oregon, in the US. So I have 9 hours time difference to talk to them. So we rarely do. No, we do. So our challenge is we built 10 apps from one code base. You see on the top row, they are all branded Gumtree. Gumtree started in the UK, and then it got to Australia, to Ireland, and to South Africa. The next brand is called Kijiji. I'm not sure where that is from, but we built the app for Canada, for Taiwan, and for Italy, for Kijiji. The next brand is called Alla Maula, and at the moment we're doing Argentina for Alla Maula. And the other two are branded eBay, one in the US and the other one in Italy. So you see we have two apps for Italy for weird reasons. So guess they all look different. What you see here is Canada. This is what the US looks like. This is what Australia looks like. This is what Italy looks like. And this is what Argentina looks like. This is iOS 6, but then iOS 7 came along. So we redesigned, and this is how Canada looks like now. This is how UK looks like on iOS 7. This is how Australia looks like on iOS 7. This is how Italy looks like on iOS 7. And this is how Argentina looks like on iOS 7. Remember, everything from one code base. So to do this redesign, we had some back and forth with the designer, and we came up with the idea we need a style guide. Otherwise, we won't get anywhere. So we had the designer to do a style guide, and it turned out this makes the implementation of everything a lot easier. It is a good document to discuss this. Otherwise, it's really hard. But if you have a design guide and you say, okay, on page 3 in the first picture, I have a question about this, then it's a lot easier. The design guide helps you and your designer to focus on what is important and what is not so important. And it's a good exercise in discipline anyway. I mean, so how did we go about creating that style guide? The first thing was we tried to create a color palette for every country there was. You see Australia here in like a nice light green style. Then we had the designer to come up with a palette of typography. So you have this Helvetica Neue Regular or Helvetica Neue is a no-brainer because Apple changed the system font from Helvetica to Helvetica Neue. So that's, of course, what we went with because we wanted to have the iOS 7 application look like any iOS 7 application just to fit in. So, and now we came up with a thing of functional styles. So I give you an example. This is an ad from Canada, and you see the price tag is in blue. And the urgent label, sellers can just buy an urgent label when they think they they want to sell fast, so they stand out with the urgent label. This one's red. Now, look at Australia. The price tag is green. The urgent label is a little bit lighter. It's a kind of an orange. And we have a background that is a light green. On Italy, for example, the price tag is orange, and the urgent label, it says top, is something a little bit different, but it's still the same label, and it's gray. So the functional style have a background to the price tag or have a background to the urgent label is what is common to all these applications. So this is how our style guide looks. So there are just a few screenshots, and you see, you can't probably read it, so I enlarge it a bit. If you look at it, you got this clickable style over there, which translates in this green text, and you have it on the other side where it says Australia. You have the same clickable style. So these are two entirely different user interface elements when doing programming for it, but they have the same functional styles. We went out doing this, well, before doing the iOS 7, we had a theming engine before, but it had some problems. The first one was it was done by a contractor, and he was trying to do a one-size-fits-all solution that does everything, and doing so on iOS 4, where it was really hard to get that stuff done. This means there were many, many dependencies from this engine into all of the code of the project, which is something you don't want, really. And it used plist files to store this theming information. Does anyone know what a plist file is? Okay, 2 people, cool. Some over there. It's basically a file that you can think of it like a JSON file. It sort of captures the same kind of information in the same way as a JSON file, but it's in a different format. There are 3 formats of it: an old next step format that looks like JSON, there's an XML format, and then Apple came up with a binary format. So you have to use some kind of editor that understands this format to edit it, and this was just going nowhere. This was really hard to handle. And the last thing, well, the code quality of the old engine, well, how can I put it? Let's say it leaves room for improvement. So we needed a new theming engine anyway, so let's go about. Our design goals were pretty simple. I mean, it was supposed to be simple. I mean, people who use it have to understand what's going on, and a big, complicated solution doesn't help anyone. Or, as the quote goes, make it as simple as possible, but no simpler. Who knows who said that? Was this guy. And we wanted to be flexible to accommodate for changing needs. What I didn't mention yet is we do the apps for 9 countries, and this means there are 9 product managers, 1 for each country, 1 in each country. That means in every time zone of that country. So this is something we have to be flexible on our side, because some product managers are not so flexible. And we wanted all theme information in code, so that is pretty obvious what happens there. And the last thing I think it's the last thing, yes, is we wanted to capture as many patterns as possible. I say patterns here because in design you don't have strict rules. When the designer says, but this thing should look different, though it's the same thing as the other thing, well, what do? You change it. But you have the patterns that all the others look like, and you end up, well, you try to capture as many patterns and simplify them, but there are no hard rules. So we identified three main areas of responsibility, technically speaking. That was encapsulating the theme information. This is about the colors. This is about the typography. This is about the styles that I talked earlier about. We wanted one central place to apply all this, and Apple has something wonderful which is called UI appearance that lets you easily do that. But it doesn't do everything, so we had to kind of do some stuff that UI appearance cannot do. Encapsulating the theme information. This has probably been the hardest part in a way, because it turns out some things are the same in every app. Actually, most things are the same in every app. But some things are the same in every brand, like Gumtree or Kijiji. And of course, there's some things that are specific to one single app. What do? Looks like with inheritance, this is a good thing. So our classes that encapsulate the theme information look a little bit like this. This is simplified, of course. But having an inheritance tree like that really turned out to be a good idea. Now this is this is the complicated part. We have three levels of indirection in this theming thing. We start out with colors and textiles. This is really the basic building blocks, and these colors and textiles translate into a functional style. I had the clickable example before, and it's obviously a color 2 like this, and it's a Helvetica Neue Regular 14 point. This is what the R14 means there. And if you have the functional style, you can apply it to any kind of UI element you want this applied to. But it turns out some UI elements have one functional style in some country and another functional style in another country, which is a pain. So we needed this other level of indirection, which we didn't like to have, but we needed it. This was, by the way, Australia. This is Canada. Canada has a nice blue. Same clickable translates into this user element, the thing being blue. And this is UK. This is UK, has a lighter blue, again translates into the user element with a lighter blue. But there was something about iOS 6. Well, it was decided early on that the iOS 6 look should stay the same way it was before. So you run the app on iOS 6, it looks like iOS 6. You ran the app on iOS 7, it looks like iOS 7. How do we do that? We have another tree of information for iOS 6, which captures the difference between the base and what is different on iOS 6. And then we go and apply this stuff on there, and then we have all the information we need. Let's talk about UI appearance. Who here does iOS development? Just a few. Who has used UI appearance? Everybody. So I could just skip this. UI appearance was introduced with iOS 5. In my opinion, it's useful since iOS 6. And it's still very useful on iOS 7. Just for a quick explanation for all the others who don't know what it is. UI appearance works in the way that you have a user UI element, and you get an appearance proxy from it, which is really the proxy for the whole class. Sorry. Then you set some property on this proxy, like here in this stupid example. I set the background color of any view to red. You wouldn't do that in real life, of course, but you can do it. And then every time Coco creates a new view, the red color gets automatically applied. This has the advantage that you can do all of this in one place and not be bothered with it when you actually create your views, create your view hierarchies, your other user interface elements. But there's a downside to it. Some things you can't do with UI appearance. For example, setting a text style to a button. This is really a pain. But there's a solution for that, and it's called UI appearance selector. It basically means you can put a method on the class, and if it's the correct kind of method, UI appearance will just do its thing to your method that you built. You can read up on it in the Apple docs, but really well written is the NS Hipster article about this, and I will have it in the links afterwards. Okay, so I'm really fast now. The lessons that we learned. The first one is really don't underestimate the amount of theme information that one app has. This is really a lot of stuff. And once you collect it into one place, you really see what it is, because usually you just put it somewhere when you instantiate a view or something, you put some styles on it, some colors, something, but once you try to collect all that into one place, you see how much information that is. The second thing is your design will change, and it will change many times. So you have to have a way to really be flexible, to whatever the designer or mostly the PM comes up with next, you have to accommodate for it. So whatever you do, you should be flexible there. The third thing, I already said that in design there are no hard rules, but merely patterns. So don't be surprised when probably the designer wants something that does not fit in your kind of the way you think about it, but it's just his way of thinking about it. And this is something that is in the fourth thing, really work closely with a designer. This is very, very important. You have to understand what's important for the designer, and the designer has to understand what is difficult for you to do. And if you have this kind of understanding, it works well. But as soon as the designer does not have an idea that one thing he proposes is just too hard to do, and he still wants it, well. And the last thing, again, I'm saying this over and over, try to come up with a simple solution that works for you. I mean, it's easy to build a really complicated, difficult system, and it's hard to build a simple one that does everything you need, but not anymore. But really try to do the simple route. That's the same thing for everything you do in software, I think. So, the links. There are some frameworks other people have done. I cannot say anything about them. I didn't look too much into them, but I thought I put them up here so you can look at this, what other people did, and the NS Hipster article again. So this is it. I was way too fast, but that leaves more time for questions.
Hello, I have a question about patterns which you used. Now it's like a trend in mobile development as well. In iOS development, that we try to use some inversion of control containers and also MVVM pattern implemented it reactive Cocoa. So could you tell me about this?
What we do here is something that is more orthogonal to what you ask, so it has not so much to do with it. The cool thing about UI appearance is you can just separate anything that has to do with theme. And the reactive Cocoa, the other patterns, this is more like what you do when you actually work with the view controllers. And but since we just separated everything out of the view controllers, you don't have any theme code in the view controllers, this does not really apply.
You told before that you contain all information about colors in your code.
Right.
Don't you use storyboards or interface builder, something like that? Why you need to store everything in your code? Why not have some... how you work with it?
The question is probably, why don't we have a storyboard for each country? Or each application? I don't know. There's probably an obvious answer to it. That doesn't get you anywhere. We don't use storyboards yet. It's not my decision, but okay. And we use zip files quite a bit, but not so many. We do relatively many things in code. And but the whole theming things, we're talking about 10 apps which have a theming information on iOS 6 and on iOS 7 that is like 20 different theming information packages that you need to get all this done. And I don't think it's viable to do this in Interface Builder anyhow. We don't have storyboards, no, but this does not have anything to do with that. It's just that my boss doesn't like them for a reason I cannot understand, but it's not my decision. I would use storyboards, but hey, we don't.
Why did you need all these color themes different for each country? Why? Just why? What does it support? It supports that I don't know, to differentiate, and so why?
I could get the easy answer. This is project managers. The more involved answer is, well, we have 3 major countries, which is UK, Australia, and Canada. They invest very much into how that stuff looks, and Australia even have their own design agency that they always try to push to us, and some countries just look like other countries. So, for example, the South African app is not very different to what Canada uses, because they're a really small country and they say, just go for it. And but basically, they all have their color palette that they put on their website. UK is one of those cases where they really went away from what the other countries do and have really a different color palette on their website. And they, especially UK, want their app really to reflect the way it looks like the website in a design way. So basically there's never been a discussion about, come on, screw all this and get one app. This is just not possible. So my name is Ruotger Deecke. I have 10 years of experience developing for Cocoa on macOS 10 and later on iOS, and I do that on Objective-C. And I'm working in Berlin, Germany for eBay Classifieds. eBay Classifieds is a part of eBay that's not so well known. So that's classifieds ads all over the world. eBay has bought some companies that do classifieds ads, and to make matters even more complicated, my team is based in Portland, Oregon, in the US. So I have 9 hours time difference to talk to them. So we rarely do. No, we do. So our challenge is we built 10 apps from one code base. You see on the top row, they are all branded Gumtree. Gumtree started in the UK, and then it got to Australia, to Ireland, and to South Africa. The next brand is called Kijiji. I'm not sure where that is from, but we built the app for Canada, for Taiwan, and for Italy, for Kijiji. The next brand is called Alla Maula, and at the moment we're doing Argentina for Alla Maula. And the other two are branded eBay, one in the US and the other one in Italy. So you see we have 2 apps for Italy for weird reasons. So guess they all look different. What you see here is Canada. This is what the US looks like. This is what Australia looks like. This is what Italy looks like. And this is what Argentina looks like. This is iOS 6, but then iOS 7 came along. So we redesigned, and this is how Canada looks like now. This is how UK looks like on iOS 7. This is how Australia looks like on iOS 7. This is how Italy looks like on iOS 7. And this is how Argentina looks like on iOS 7. Remember, everything from one code base. So to do this redesign, we had some back and forth with the designer, and we came up with the idea we need a style guide. Otherwise, we won't get anywhere. So we had the designer to do a style guide, and it turned out this makes the implementation of everything a lot easier. It is a good document to discuss this. Otherwise, it's really hard. But if you have a design guide and you say, okay, on page 3 in the first picture, I have a question about this, then it's a lot easier. The design guide helps you and your designer to focus on what is important and what is not so important. And it's a good exercise in discipline anyway. I mean, so how did we go about creating that style guide? The first thing was we tried to create a color palette for every country there was. You see Australia here in like a nice light green style. Then we had the designer to come up with a palette of typography. So you have this Helvetica Neue Regular or Helvetica Neue is a no-brainer because Apple changed the system font from Helvetica to Helvetica Neue. So that's, of course, what we went with because we wanted to have the iOS 7 application look like any iOS 7 application just to fit in. So, and now we came up with a thing of functional styles.
Скажем спасибо Рутгеру. Thank you, Ruotger.